She won most talkative in high school, and she has been running her mouth ever since. Welcome to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast with your host, Lisa Fisher.
Okay, I've never had a sleep expert on, and I think this is the one thing we can all say that somebody, either they have struggled with sleep or they know someone who is, and it is epidemic right now, Devin. But I mean, your goal in life is to help us sleep better. So what's step one?
Well, I always like to say step one is understanding that sleep is the most natural thing in the world, and that there's nothing you can do to force or control sleep. Really important for people to get, because a lot of people that have sleep issues, the first thing they do is they start scouring the internet for, what do I do to get my sleep back? And not that there's a lot you can do. And it's really important for people to understand that sleep is a natural biological process that happens when you allow it to happen versus trying to force and control it. So we're going to just throw that right out from the beginning. But there's so many things that people need to understand when it comes to improving sleep and really optimizing it, so that it's not just about getting enough sleep. You want to make sure that you're getting quality sleep. And so, but yeah, I want to just start with that. It's so critical for people to understand that very important concept of not trying to force or control it.
Right. But it is life-giving too, because as we all know that we torture prisoners. How? By depriving them of sleep. So sleep is, I had one guest the other day say sleep was even more important than our nutrition, than a lot of other things in our health, because there's a correlation, and you can tell us about this, between sleep and insulin resistance. So being overweight. So let's address that. What does lack of sleep or broken sleep do that affects the scales?
Yeah, I mean, this is super common. You could have the eating the perfect diet, you're exercising, but you just can't seem to lose the weight. And then you start to ask questions around, well, how you sleeping? And people are like, well, I'm not really sleeping. And so even after just one night of not getting enough sleep, your insulin is, if you got a blood test, could look like pre-diabetic. So It really does affect insulin on a mass. And this is why, so cortisol, insulin, ghrelin, and leptin, these are the hormones that kind of wreak havoc on our bodies when we're not sleeping. So people can experience, even everyone had this experience. You don't sleep well. You wake up and you crave sugar and fat like crazy. And no matter how much you eat, you're still hungry. I think everyone can relate to that. And this is what happens because of these hormones are pretty much hijacking our bodies, saying, survive. We need to get sugar and fat to survive because something is wrong. And so the body is craving sugar and fat, right? Ghrelin and leptin are thrown off, the hunger and full signaling hormones. And then cortisol is higher. So where are we storing that fat? We're storing it around the worst place, which is the midsection.
Right.
And this then becomes this vicious cycle of people not sleeping. So the body's more stressed, and then a stressed body has trouble sleeping. So this becomes this sort of paradox that people find themselves on. And my heart goes out to people that are in this struggle. We help support hundreds of them across the United States, but it's like, it's not fun, because it's like, you feel like your life's kind of falling apart. Life feels chaotic. Your mental health, goes down the tubes. You feel foggy, you feel irritable, and you just don't feel good. You don't feel like yourself when you're not sleeping.
But there's also the paradox of that is sometimes too much sleep is also a sign. Somnolence is a sign of depression. I would say probably more than anything, depression. But it's not restorative sleep at that point, is it?
No. And most people, when they're in sort of a depressed state, oftentimes they're taking some type of medication. And unfortunately, I'm not anti-medication. There's a time and place. Thank God we have medication. But a
Right.
lot of the medication that people take, whether it's for depression or anxiety or for insomnia, unfortunately, they're sort of like sedatives. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between sedation and sleep. So these sedatives, I like to give the analogy. It's kind of like if they knock you out. Like if somebody punched you in the face and you're lying on the floor, and people are like, "Oh, look, he looks like he's peacefully sleeping." It's no, that's totally different state than real sleep, right? And so that's unfortunately what a lot of these medications do. And again, there's a time and a place for medication. And I think that people jump too quickly to medication and stay on it too long and don't really address the underlying root causes to then have the body restore its natural ability to heal and to sleep, which is exactly what sleep does for the body.
Well, if you look at diagnostic tools for sleep, sleep deprivation, interruptions, other things, do you do you think we have more power in learning about our bodies to determine what our sleep is doing, or do you think a sleep study is something that someone ought to spend the time and money, and hassle for?
Yeah, I think so. So sleep apnea is a dangerous condition that a lot of people have and don't realize they have. So
Yeah.
if you think that you have sleep apnea, and the signs that you have, there's a possibility that you might have sleep apnea, is you wake up short of breath and you snore. If you have these things happening, then you definitely want to take the time to go and do a sleep study or have an in-home sleep study done to see if you have sleep apnea, because that puts a lot of stress on the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have sleep apnea and it's undiagnosed. And then, people unfortunately have heart attacks as a result of just putting that extra stress on their body and their heart throughout the night. Now, if you have insomnia, a sleep study is not really going to do much for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have insomnia, and there's different classifications of insomnia. So, there's transient insomnia, which can last a couple of days. There's acute insomnia, which can last a couple of weeks. And there's chronic insomnia, which is categorized for having trouble either initiating sleep or staying asleep for longer than 3 months, or the issues lasted longer than 3 months,
Right.
and it's impacting your day. So a lot of people have chronic insomnia and don't realize it either. And but a sleep study is not going to really do much for that.
You know how many people chase their tail on all these sleep studies and all these issues that I just kind of want to shake my head, but that makes sense. So sleep apnea is the one that you do want it diagnosed, but then as an intermittent faster who has, low fasting insulin and good cortisol, I'm going to go back to the fact that if you have sleep apnea, you probably have insulin resistance and, you probably have other metabolic issues. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not a sleep apnea expert, but I do know a bit about it just being in the field.
Yeah.
But there's different types of sleep apnea. So there's obstructive sleep apnea. Sometimes you could be the fittest person. You could actually be extremely healthy and still have sleep apnea, where if your tongue is slipping back, there's a muscle underneath the tongue called the myoglossus muscle. And for some people that is weak because of the structure of their jaw or their face.
Oh, so
and
it's
it slips back and
anatomical.
blocks the airway.
It's kind of the
Yeah, it
way
could
you
be
were
anatomical.
created. Okay. That makes sense.
But that being said, Lisa, what you just said, majority of people have it because they're overweight, and they're carrying too much weight around their neck. They're carrying extra weight, and that is absolutely a contributor to sleep apnea. And if you just lose the weight, then all of a sudden the sleep apnea goes away as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a panacea getting that insulin down, glucose, normal glucose readings, all the things, because we know that 92% of the population is metabolically unfit, and that connection bleeds into sleep and rest and weight and so many other things. Okay, let's start with womb to the tomb on sleep needs. As an infant, our infants need the most sleep because they're growing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So your sleep architecture is going to change throughout your life. And so when somebody asks, how much sleep is the right amount of sleep I should be getting, it's so difficult to answer that question because not only does age impact that, lifestyle impacts it. So how much stress you have, how much and how physically active you are, what stage of life you're in, what, are you a man, are you a woman, where in the world do you live, right? All of these things impact how much sleep we need. And that's going to change. And it can change, our sleep architecture actually can change throughout the seasons.
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
you might, so it's really, really like when I've been tracking my sleep for about 5 years and looking back on my sleep data, I noticed during the seasons, there's a cadence. Like I could see the changes in my own sleep architecture just related to the seasons. So it's really hard to say, hey, this is the right amount of sleep that you need. And I always say that the way that you determine that is, do you wake up feeling refreshed? Do you wake up and do you feel energized and refreshed? And for some people, that might be 6 hours. They might wake up after 6 hours.
You really think that? So you do think there's some people who can manage 6 hours and they're not a risk for a heart attack if everything else is in line?
Very small amount of people.
Yeah.
Probably like 2% of the population.
Okay.
But yes, there are people. Yeah, for sure. There are people. Most people greatly underestimate the amount of sleep that they actually need. That's the truth. And that's for a lot of reasons. I think it's from programming, from society, viewing sleep as a habit of low performers or something, a waste of time. There's sort of that aspect. It's prevalent. You hear things like you snooze, you lose, sleep when you're dead, early bird gets the worm. Like all of these things are ingrained in society for people to think like sleep is this thing that should be avoided. It's almost like, oh, if you're sleeping, then you're, you don't got anything going on in life type of thing. And that's so sad because it's such a beautiful gift that restores every part of our mind body system to be able to actually live life at a high level with joy and with energy and presence and capacity. So if you look at statistically the amount of sleep as a society that we're getting, it's declining. And I believe that it's going to continue to decline as technology continues to invade our life. Now, there are companies and there are products that are trying to enter the bedroom to help improve sleep. And I get excited about that. And I'll say the most of the technology that's available now is actually a barrier to sleep. The founder of Netflix said that, you heard this quote, sleep was his competition. I'm like, oh God. That's when sick. I heard that, I was like, oh no.
That breaks my heart.
It does. It's so bad. It's so bad. And people are under the hypnosis of a lot of these social media platforms and including, these TV apps and things like Netflix. And it's tough. It takes real discipline to draw boundaries and to put in place sort of conditions to then have sleep be natural and be restorative. It's a real commitment, unfortunately, because of the environments that we live in now.
I champion sleep unlike anything I think I have done in my adult life. Besides, I've always been, a thyroid advocate because that's when I started noticing my sleep was off. When I was diagnosed with thyroid disease, I was 39 or 40. And part of it was I didn't have trouble falling asleep. I had trouble sleep maintenance, which then can be adrenals. It can be progesterone. There are a lot of and thyroid's a hormone. So that's when I started kind of peeling back the layers of the onion going, what is it? Because when sleep's elusive and runs through your fingers, runs through your hands like sand, it is so frustrating because I knew that it was the reason for the way I felt and the way I performed during the day. So now I look at sleep, not that you care, Devin, but it will make sense to you. I wake up in the morning with my goal is to work on my sleep that night. I wake up looking at the sun and getting my 10 to 20 minutes of sunlight in the morning.
Yes.
I spend 20 minutes with no sunscreen on, getting vitamin D. I have the D Minder app. I sit outside. I drink my Topo Chico. So I'm an intermittent faster. I may not eat till 1 or 2 o'clock, whatever it is that works for me. And then at night, I stop what I'm doing to go outside my home again to look at the sunlight. I mean, I look like I'm on fire. And then here's the sexy part of my day is putting on my blue light blocking glasses. For those of you on YouTube, you can see them. And it's because I'm doing it all to protect my sleep cycle. Now, I may be, in fact, because of it, I've eliminated alcohol. Why? Alcohol does nothing but interrupt my sleep. So can you speak to any of those things? Am I crazy that I run outside in the morning and get my 10 to 20 minutes of sunlight and sunset?
Lisa, you are not crazy. You are highly intelligent and smart for doing that. So I feel like I should put my blue light blocking glasses on since
right.
I kind of have the Elton John look going on with mine.
I do.
These are the Viva rays. You look good. I think we should just leave them on the rest of this the interview here.
That's a good question. Should we be blocking blue light during the day, all day?
Yes. Now this is really important, I think, for people to understand. So there is something called junk light, and it's these artificial LED fluorescent lights that most people they're installed in so many office buildings, and you're staring at a computer all day or a phone, and it's detrimental to your circadian rhythm. And so what you're doing when you say you wake up and you get some sun on your skin and you get some, that is going to help reset your body's natural clock. Watching the sunset, like you said, you also do, is the other way of helping that melatonin production naturally be released. It's so important. We're so disconnected from the rhythm of the earth. That sounds very hippie-ish, but it's the truth. We don't get our feet on the ground. We're indoors more than 90% of the time with artificial fake light. No wonder, our melatonin production isn't what it used to be when we were, get outside most of the days as farmers or working on the land as ranchers or whatever it was. So those are just really simple strategies to help the physiological system to remind it of, okay, now it's time to start to produce melatonin. Melatonin's a sleep hormone, right? Now it's time to start the cortisol production to be decreased in the morning, right? Getting the sun on your skin. So it's not rocket science. It's really just about getting back to the natural rhythms of nature. And really understanding that most of what we do is really quite the opposite of what nature intended us to have. So blue light blocking glasses, yes, they're effective if you get a high quality brand. It's really important. The cells in the eyes, the myopsin cells, they're picking up different wavelengths, which then trigger all types of different hormone releases throughout the day. So if you are someone who spends most of your time behind a computer under artificial lights, get some blue light blocking glasses. It would absolutely help, without a doubt. But more importantly, get outside.
Here's another trick I have. I found Symbiotica Cup brand does a topical magnesium oil. My granddaughter spent the night with me the other night. I sprayed it 15 times on their abdomens. I'm telling you, they were after bath time, and we read a story. They couldn't keep their almost 6 and 3. They couldn't keep their eyes open. This is nature's wonder drug. And I do the good magnesium from Bioptimizers too, but I couldn't give that to my granddaughters because it's capsule form. So this is something that also helps with sleep because magnesium, it's almost got a sedative property, doesn't it?
It does. And most people, what's interesting about that, most people are actually deficient in magnesium. It's not in our food, as it's not, the soils are depleted of this specific mineral. That's why when you go and you swim in the ocean, not only are you getting light and you're getting magnesium, you're getting negative ions, you're getting things that sort of offset stress. But that's one of the reasons why you sleep so well that night is you're getting, minerals. And the skin is an incredible organ for absorbing those minerals. So, if you're not supplementing with a high quality magnesium supplement, the next best way is dermally, topically, like to spray. And so that's a great strategy for sure, for just in health in general. And what's good for your health is good for your sleep.
Absolutely. Because it's good for your GI tract. It's good for constipation. It's good for anxiety. I mean, it is truly, I don't think you need to take a million supplements for good health. I think a lot of good health is just getting good sleep and sunlight. But I do think this is not medical advice. My attorney wanted me to tell you, but I do think everyone needs to do some type of good magnesium. Plus the other thing, Devin, when you mention being at the beach, the other reason we sleep well is we walk in the sand, we're grounding, and we're not on our device, because you can't really see your device when you're at the beach. You can't, the screen, it's too hard for to see the screen. So it just shows, going back to what our ancestors did. I mean, you don't have to, at that point, go kill your own meat. You can eat at the nice restaurant when you're at the beach, but you're doing other things that our bodies really thank us for. And that includes sunlight, the salt in the water. It's therapeutic. I mean, it's healing. That's another thing that our government has told people to cut salt out of your diet. Now, cut the processed salt out of your diet, table salt, but the other stuff's really good. Okay. Well, then on that same vein, I do now have a red light, which I believe has helped me sleep. But my daughter sometimes will come and do red light therapy at night. And I'm wondering, is that going to wake her up? She says it helps her sleep. True or false?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really depends. So if you think about it, our ancestors used to sit around fires and tell stories. Yeah. And that red light, there's different types of red light. So, I think it's photobiomodulation, those red light machines, depending on the different wavelengths, and they kind of, depending on the device and the brand, have different wavelengths. It may or may not be good, to be honest. We use salt lamps in my house, but that red light generally is, you watch a sunset, there's red light. You sit around a fire, there's red light. And that does help support the melatonin production. But there are different wavelengths of red light. So I'm not a light expert, but I do know a bit about this. And depending on the wavelengths would dictate, hey, is this something that you want to do more in the morning, or would it be beneficial for towards the end of the day? I say salt lamps and incandescent bulbs are probably some of the best, and just a fire, looking at a fire, and doing an indoor sunset. So you start to turn off half of your lights as the sun starts to set. That's a really good strategy to kind of train the body that, hey, it's time to start to wind down and to kick on that melatonin faucet.
Yeah. So just a rheostat, you're saying just adjusting the light in the home can help the brain recognize that it's getting close to sleepy time. I've even heard Dr. Andrew Huberman, who sleep is one of his things, as a PhD at Stanford, I think he and Dave Asprey both say they turn off all lights and only use candles. If you want to go. I do think Asprey has said that. They only use candles at night.
That's next level, Lisa. And if you want to go next level, that would probably be the best. But now incandescent bulbs are kind of making a comeback as people kind of realize the detrimental effects of LEDs and sort of all this artificial light that's, sort of wreaking havoc on our systems here.
Yes.
But candlelight, is that's not only is it good for sleep, it's good for setting the mood for, other things that happen in bed, which are supportive of sleep. So,
that's right. That's right. And that's what the bedroom's for: sleep and sex, and maybe some Netflix, but sleep and sex. So I can see that. Then what's your opinion then on naps? Remember, Ronald Reagan in the 80s made naps famous because he was known as the leader of the free world who took a 10 to 20 minute cat nap every day. And I think he did say he maybe only slept 6 or 7 hours a night. A lot of time world leaders do. They're known for their drive and ambition and less sleep. So What do you think about a good nap? Meaning a good nap, a quick nap, not a long nap.
Yeah, so if you have chronic insomnia, napping is not a strategy that you want to do, because what it
Okay.
does is it decreases sleep pressure, or the buildup of the neurochemical called adenosine that kind
Yeah.
of creates this sort of hunger or desire for sleep. If you don't have chronic insomnia, napping is an incredible strategy for restoring energy. And our body temperature naturally dips in the afternoon. Usually, it's people think, well, I kind of get tired after lunch. That's because your body temperature is actually dropping. And most countries around the world actually take, siestas, and
Yeah.
they close up their stores, and they take that is a time the body sort of wants to rest. Um, so if you have chronic insomnia, resting is a good strategy, but not napping, because napping is going to reduce adenosine, and you want that adenosine to build up to create the sleep pressure for then
Okay.
sleep to happen.
So I've heard Huberman talk about adenosine, and that I've never understood exactly its component. So some things modulate, then obviously adenosine, is that a hormone then that the hypothalamus
It's a
produces, or is that
neurochemical. So
neurochemical?
it's
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, and the interesting thing about adenosine, caffeine, if you look at the molecular structure of adenosine and caffeine, they're very, very similar. And caffeine actually, what it blocks the adenosine receptor sites. That's why you get that energy.
Right.
And that's also why, unfortunately, it disturbs sleep. It's not something that you want to have later in the day, because it's blocking the receptor sites for that adenosine to actually be
Got it.
uptake. And then, yeah.
Got it. Well, he even has, I think it's Huberman that even has the philosophy of consuming your coffee an hour and a half, 90 minutes after you wake up, not first thing in the morning. Like a lot of people, run to the coffee maker and pour the coffee. They say wait 90 minutes. And I don't understand what is the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so our cortisol levels are naturally highest in the morning. That's what actually wakes you up out of sleep. And caffeine is kind of, I like to give the analogy, it's kind of like dumping gasoline on an already hot fire. So it actually activates the adrenal glands. It sort of increases cortisol even more. And you want to sort of wait for the cortisol to naturally start to come down before you put something in your body that's going to kind of kick it
Oh,
back up.
I see.
And so also caffeine is a diuretic. So throughout the night, we lose about 1 liter of water through respiration and sweat every night. That's a lot of
Really?
water. Yes. Isn't
So
it? It's crazy.
we sweat every night in bed?
We sweat, and also a lot of it's through respiration, just
Huh.
breathing. You're
Okay.
losing water. And think about it. If you're in your bed, let's say 8.5 hours, and you're sleeping 8, right? You're not consuming any liquids during that time,
Right.
right? You're just breathing. And so you wake up in a pretty much a dehydrated state. So you don't want to further that dehydration by putting something in that's a diuretic that's going to dehydrate you even more. So that's why waiting 90 minutes, starting your day with water, preferably something alkaline, maybe with some lemon in it, would be a better strategy to let the cortisol start to dip, and also to hydrate the system before you put something acidic in that's also going to, activate the adrenal glands.
What's the latest possible time of the day you tell people they should consume caffeine? What's the
So
good
this,
cutoff for everybody?
yeah, Lisa, this is a bit tricky to answer, because everyone metabolizes caffeine at different rates. And so some people are fast metabolizers of caffeine, some people are slower. So you could get a test, like a genetic test, to kind of see what type of metabolizer you are. But as a general rule of thumb, I say, the half-life of caffeine is about 5 to 6 hours. So it's in your system for anywhere from 10 to 12 hours.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And so the afternoon, a lot of times people have like an afternoon espresso or coffee. That's not really ideal, to be honest. When we're talking about really optimizing sleep, it would be, you have your morning coffee, and then after, if you're going to have something that has caffeine in it, have like a tea or something has less caffeine, not a giant Starbucks that has like 200 milligrams of caffeine and a bunch of sugar in it. But everyone, and caffeine also it's the most abused drug in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's addictive, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
also, you build up a tolerance to it. So the more you use it, the more you need to feel those effects. And so that's also important for people to understand that it is a drug. Caffeine is a psychoactive drug.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Starbucks is, a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the afternoon, just to answer the question. Yeah.
Okay. Then what's your opinion on alcohol? I know for me personally, that is, as I said, one of the main reasons I've eliminated it. I realized no matter what I did, it interrupted my sleep later, even though it helps you fall asleep. So what's the thinking on alcohol consumption and what it does to our sleep rhythm?
Yeah. So alcohol is the other, unfortunately, people take, caffeine is the upper, alcohol is the downer, right? So it is a sedative. It can help you fall asleep faster, but what it does is it dehydrates you, number one. It's a toxin, number two, and it changes your body temperature. So heat kind of heats the body up, and your body temperature needs to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit for sleep to happen. So alcohol too close to bedtime, it's unfortunately, no matter what, it's going to disturb your sleep.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to understand that quality also makes a difference. So if you're drinking, a glass of red wine at dinner and it's biodynamic, it's organic, it's low in sulfites, it's low in alcohol, that's going to have a different impact on your sleep quality than if you were to drink a cheap bottle of wine that was loaded with sulfites, that, was super high in alcohol. So quality makes a huge difference when we talk about alcohol consumption, timing and quality. But ideally, if you're going to consume alcohol, you want to consume high quality alcohol at least 4 hours before you want to be asleep. And you don't want to make that something that's a ritual that you do every night, because it really isn't ideal for quality of sleep. It gets in the way of REM sleep, which is a really important stage of sleep.
We'll talk about REM sleep in just a minute. I want to continue on alcohol. If you go to Europe, they serve Prosecco, the Aperol Spritz, like we do iced tea. And in fact, at lunch, they say, "Do you want Aperol Spritz?" You're like, "Yes." Until then, when I drink it, and then at about 1:30, I am fading. So I was just wondering, that may be their philosophy, that they are drinking it earlier in the day. So no, they drink all day. Forget that. Scratch that from the record. I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, because I really don't know. You people who go to brunch on Saturday and Sunday and you're drinking, I commend you, because it wouldn't work for me. I would be asleep in my egg souffle within about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think alcohol too is people build up tolerances to it, and some people are more sensitive to certain drugs than other people. And I think the healthier you become, the more sensitive you become. And so as people eat cleaner and get better sleep and become more tuned to their body's needs and desires, caffeine and alcohol, or any drug for that matter, is going to have a greater effect on your system than someone that's a bit more toxic, or has a heavier toxic load on their system. So
that makes all the sense. The more that I've cleaned up my diet, the more sensitive I am to anything. That much gluten can send me over the edge. This much soy, you know what I'm saying? The things that I had in a standard American diet, especially before I started intermittent fasting in 2017, before I was cognizant of my diet, I thought I just was doing high fat and that was enough, but it wasn't. And now I'm seeing food sensitivities in the tiniest ways, and that all makes sense. Okay, let's now switch over to the stages of sleep. We hear about 90-minute cycles. We hear about REM sleep, and how important that is. So break that down for us.
Yeah, so if we're doing it right, we're getting 4 to 5 cycles of sleep a night. And a cycle is about 90 minutes.
Okay.
So within a cycle, there's different stages of sleep. Each stage is really important. So people think, oh, well, deep sleep, delta sleep, and REM sleep, that's, most important. But you have to get to those stages in light sleep, stages 1 and 2. And so if you look at somebody's sleep architecture, you're going to see it kind of looks like sort of like a wave. And we're coming out in and out of these different stages of sleep over that 90-minute cycle. Now, what's interesting, Lisa, is we get most of our deep sleep which is where most of the body restoration takes place, in the first half of the night. And we get most of our REM sleep, which is really where, memory, short-term memory is getting shuttled to long-term storage. It's more of, cognitively working through the emotional traumas throughout the day. We're dreaming. That happens more at the last two stages before we wake up. And unfortunately, what happens is most people do things that get in the way of the first two stages of sleep, like drink alcohol, watch TV, eat food, which we can talk about. Eating too close to bedtime gets your body is digesting food, and then they wake up too early. So they're kind of like shortening the good cycles of stages where you're getting most of your deep sleep and your REM sleep. And so, unfortunately, most people don't get enough of that quality sleep because they're doing things that interfere with those two important cycles in the beginning, the bookends, I like to call them, of the night.
Do we all think that dreaming is one of the most important components of restorative sleep, or do some people just not recall their dreams?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, dreaming is a phenomenon. People really don't know why we dream. There's different theories on dreaming and what's taking place. And depending on who you ask, they're going to have a different sort of response on that. But we all are dreaming. And whether or not you remember your dreams or you want to try to interpret your dreams or make sense of your dreams, that's, I think, personal preference. But dreaming, when you're dreaming, primarily we dream in REM. There are now evidence that supports that we also dream in some other stages of sleep, but primarily in rapid eye movement, that's when we're dreaming. I believe personally that dreams we're working through traumas, the emotional things that we don't really deal with or process during the day. That happens through dreams. But there's a lot of other kind of abstract theories on why we dream, but we really don't know. It's kind of an amazing phenomenon. And it's really interesting that over the ages, a lot of these incredible scientists like Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, they've actually used the dreaming state to problem solve. And if you ask a lot of, even today, these people that have extraordinary breakthroughs in technology or really any field, a lot of times those breakthroughs happen during the night, which is fascinating to me.
Wow.
I think that dreams, you can leverage dreams to sort of problem solve, create a problem solve, and also work through some things that maybe are not in our conscious awareness that need to be processed in order to be clear and focused in our lives.
So are you saying, though, we can have dreams even if we don't get into REM sleep? Like, I swear I dream during a nap. If I have a 20-minute nap, I swear that maybe it's not 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, but I know that I dream even in a short period of time. But I don't get to the 90 minutes.
Yeah. And so you actually might be in REM sleep. So it's not like sometimes, so for instance, it's not like the way that sleep architecture works is it's not like you might fall asleep and go right into like a deeper sleep, a delta sleep or REM sleep. So it's not like, okay, stage 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. That's what I thought it was.
So you can kind of jump around. And what's fascinating about the body is in people that are in sleep deprived states, they've done studies that show that the body sort of adapts. It'll prioritize different stages of sleep if you're sleep deprived to get you what you need. So there's such an incredible intelligence to this system we call the body. And so so that's kind of it. The body has this amazing intelligence that's what it does. So it's not sort of like this it changes every night. Your sleep architecture is going to look totally different every single night. It's not going to be anywhere close to what it was the night before.
You've been tracking your sleep for 5 years. What have you noticed? What will give you a spike of one stage of sleep, or what will help? What will diminish it in other ways? Is it stress? Is it the food sensitivities? Is it what you ate? Things like that.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've seen in my life that I've noticed is stress is the number one reason that we don't sleep well, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical stress. For sure, without a doubt. Also, eating too close to bedtime, that's definitely gets in. It's very apparent that we're not getting into the deeper stages of sleep. I can see that in my own data. If there's not a 3.5 hour window between, my last bite of food, I noticed that the deep sleep. And to be honest, I use the Oura Ring for tracking. These devices, they've gotten way better. They're not 100% accurate. Nothing is, even a sleep study. I mean, it's kind of the gold standard, but so really what I'm looking for is trends over time. And also, how do I feel? How do I feel the next day? Because it's not just about the data, it's about how do you feel? Like and so I know on the nights that I eat too close to bedtime, I wake up the next day and I can kind of feel like I'm not as rested. And for sure, that's the number one thing that keeps most people up, including myself. So mitigating the stress and understanding, how to sort of master stress is such a critical part of sleep optimization.
Well, we've touched a little bit on hormones, cortisol being one, progesterone for women, it's nature's sedative, what our adrenals are doing. When do you start looking at supplementation, like adaptogens or CBD or all the different, CBD doesn't necessarily affect your hormones, but I guess it could. But I'm looking at adrenal support and some other things that you can get a good over the counter if you go to like a good pharmacy and get it from them, not the junky stuff at Walmart. But what do you look at in supplementation that you really like?
Yeah, so it's really important to understand that supplements are to supplement a healthy lifestyle. So if you're not doing these other things that we've talked about so far, a supplement, I don't care how good a quality isn't going to make the difference. People look at supplements kind of like these like magic silver bullets.
Yeah.
And it's maybe 5% improvement, maybe, even if you have the highest qualities, whatever it is. That being said, there are definitely things that can support sleep. Some of the ones that I really like, you mentioned CBD, a high quality CBD can help. Number one, it can help with pain management and inflammation. But there are some studies to show that now that it does support sleep. Marijuana, on the other hand, unfortunately, THC gets in the way of getting into REM sleep, which is, again, a really important stage of sleep. So I'm a huge fan of Kava, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And so most people don't know what Kava is. And if they've tried it, they're like, oh, that's disgusting. I could never, incorporate that. But there's a company called Kava-Plex. They make a Kava oil, high quality Kava oil. And the reason why I like Kava is because Kava has not only does it have a reverse tolerance, meaning the more you take it, the less you need to take to have the desired effect, but it also helps rebuild the GABA system in the brain. And most of the not really supplements, medications that people take to help them sleep work on the GABA system, but they deplete the GABA system. And what Kava does is it helps restore and rebuild the GABA system in the brain. So I'm a huge fan of Kava. Ashwaganda is a great for stress and cortisol management.
Yes.
And there's some great formulations out there that have, l-theanine. There's a lot of different things that people can kind of experiment with. At the end of the day, it's really, you got to experiment with things because everyone's biochemistry is unique. Everyone's sort of, diet and lifestyle is unique. So what works for one person really well might not work for someone else. So that's really where you got to be open to experimentation. But again, it's such a small, it's not going to move the needle as much as people or supplement companies would want us to believe.
Well, that's right. Marketing has ruined us in a lot of ways because we believe what we've been told. We were told we needed to have fourth meal when those of us who intermittent fast go, no, you need about 1.5. So I can definitely push back. And breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. We've been told that. So GABA, GABA, what is that? And then how's it different from Kava? Now I'm confused.
Okay. Oh yeah. So Kava is a root from Polynesia. And so the Polynesian Islands, they've been using this root, which they make into a brew. kind of like a tea, if you will. And they've been using it for thousands of years in their ceremonies, whether it's like a funeral or a celebration or some type of spiritual ceremony. And that it's what it is a natural sedative. You can think of it as a natural sedative.
All right.
And so a lot of the medications that are out there that are sedatives, again, they're sort of these chemical compounds that work on the GABA system in the brain. And the GABA system in the brain, you can think of the GABA system like the brakes on your nervous system. Okay. And so a lot of the medications work on this system as the brakes. But what they do is they're braking the nervous system, but they're depleting our natural ability to do that. Whereas drinking kava actually creates more connections in that system to allow it to break with less, which is why it's such an incredible plant medicine, really.
So it's something you drink before you go to bed?
Yes, you can drink it. I take it as a tincture. So there's an oil that you sublingually underneath the mouth, because honestly, it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah, right.
That's probably why it's not so popular. But again, there are companies now that have found ways of processing it with keeping the integrity of the active constituents that it tastes. You can't really taste. It doesn't taste as bad. But how you know you got a really good kava is actually your tongue will go numb. Yeah. So here in Florida, we actually have a lot of there's a lot of people in recovery in South Florida. This is the recovery capital of the world is in South Florida, and there, not surprisingly, is also many kava bars that have popped up over the last decade or longer, because people that they still want to go and be social and relax, but obviously they don't want to go do that in a bar.
Got it.
So they go to these kava bars. So I don't know. You're in Arkansas?
Yeah.
Lisa?
No, we're people still smoke cigarettes here, so we're way behind.
Yeah, you're not gonna find kava bar in Arkansas.
No, not yet. But you never know. We might.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's definitely worth an experience if you're ever in a place, and usually you'll find these in more of places that are cutting edge type of modern places, but they're popping up, and there's good reason for why they're popping up. Yeah. Well,
it goes along with that is something else people use in recovery is the higher dose naltrexone, right? I'm taking the low dose naltrexone to mitigate some autoimmune conditions because I have a lot of autoimmune diseases, and I've just about reversed them. I've made incredible progress, but there's something about, I do think the LDN has caused my loss of interest in alcohol. I'm a slow metabolizer because I've had that test done. So that's why I can't really tolerate caffeine. That's probably why I can't tolerate alcohol. I'm really like a 15-pound infant or toddler. You just can't. A thimbleful is all I can take. But the low dose naltrexone has also increased my dreaming, which is crazy, crazy dreams. In fact, I had to back off on it. I had to come to a lower dose because I couldn't even tolerate it. But there's something to it magically that helps with autoimmune, helps with getting better sleep. There are a lot of factors in that. Do you know much about the LDN?
I don't actually. Yeah, you would definitely know a lot more about that than I do. So
it's really interesting. That. And then when I looked into it, because I really have all of a sudden have an aversion to alcohol, and I was reading that the higher dose naltrexone is what people use when they're in the middle of an overdose. Whatever that thing is called, it's like in a pen or something. Like it's the EpiPen of overdoses, but it's at a high dose. Maybe it's at 50 milligrams, and what I take is 3 milligrams. So I was just seeing if there was a connection there, but it does help with sleep. It does help with it, gets you into better dreaming, which might mean I have better sleep. So it's all connected. Okay, let's move on to mouth taping. What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, my philosophy is it's it's not something you want to do. If you're a mouth breather, you definitely want to retrain your body to breathe through your nose. And there's a great book called Breathe that everyone should read that'll explain all the benefits of nasal breathing. And so mouth taping is something I personally have experimented with and do recommend for people that are mouth breathers. The first time I walked into the bedroom with this tape on my mouth, my wife looked at me like, what the hell is going on?
And she ripped it off, and then you lost your mustache and your part of your goatee.
Exactly. It really hurt. I was. It was terrible. I couldn't do any podcasts for about a month. So no, it is a great strategy to retrain the body to nasal breathe. And nasal breathing is really important for nitrous oxide production. And it's also, it's one of the things that, you don't really think about it, right? Most people don't think about breathing. But the breath is such a powerful way of mitigating so many diseases. It's about, it's so connected to our nervous system. Just changing how you breathe can change your state, your physical, mental, and emotional state. So training yourself to nasal breathe through the night is an amazing strategy for increasing quality of sleep, especially if you're a mouth breather. It's also good for your dental hygiene.
Right.
It's so good
and
to, you don't
jaw
have bad
development.
breath.
Like they've shown pictures of modern man as opposed to 100 or 200 years ago, and how the jaw and the teeth and things have changed because we're just a bunch of mouth breathers, I guess.
Yeah. So mouth taping. And then what I would always recommend for people that were, wanting to experiment with this, because it is a bit esoteric, but doing a breathe right strip to open up the nasal passages of the nose. And then the great part about mouth taping is you don't have to do it consistently. It's something that you do for a period of time until your body is retrained in naturally breathing through your nose. So for me, I was a mouth breather, and it took me about 2 weeks of mouth taping to then say, I don't need to mouth tape anymore. My body just recognized, okay, now we're breathing from our nose. So I do think it's a great strategy, and it can help with snoring for sure.
Okay.
So, it's a great strategy for people that snore. I definitely would recommend, if you're, snorer, get an apnea test and start to mouth tape. That can help.
Okay. Well, let's give our listeners give me a minute shameless self-promotion on the Sleep Science Academy and how people can reach out to you. Because I think what you do is fascinating science. And I think helping people sleep is as important as helping little old ladies cross the road. It is the backbone of our future. So tell me what you do.
Yeah, so it's a holistic approach based in science. And essentially what we do is we give people the education, support, and tools that they're missing to naturally sleep. And so over the course of 8 weeks, we're giving people the education that they need, as well as the support and tracking their sleep to show them, hey, as you make these changes in your thoughts and in your behaviors, how that impacts and improves your sleep. But we work with really the worst of the worst, the people that have tried medications, acupuncture, functional medical doctors. These are people that are at the end of the rope. If they're willing to do what we ask them to do, we're able to help them. We have a 97% success rate for people that complete our program.
That's awesome. I have a client right now I'm thinking of who definitely needs you. So I think a lot of people do. I think sleep, as I said earlier, is just kind of elusive for some people, and other people, we get it, and we sleep well, and we wake up without an alarm, which isn't that our goal, is to wake up without an alarm at a decent time? Yeah.
Ideally. Yeah. If you're able to create a lifestyle where you're able to have that is the ideal situation, is to be able to let your body tell you when it's time to wake up versus a device.
Okay.
But yeah, sleep is one of the greatest gifts that we all are given, and we definitely take it for granted when we're sleeping well, and really it affects our lives in a huge way when we're not. So anyone that's struggling with sleep, we'd love to see if we might be able to support it.
Okay, link in show notes. Devin, great job today. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe and download all the episodes and leave a review, won't you? The Lisa Fisher Said podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.